guys. And today we're gonna just go over some like retro stuff. And then we're gonna continue, which I have not been playing in a while, is we're gonna play um, our good old PS1 classic Legend of Dragoon, continuing our playthrough. We're on disc 2, so we're gonna be doing stuff on there. I see. Oh, what's up, Spotties? How's it going, man? And yeah, all is well. All is great. I hope the same for you, brother. We are trying new things at different times of the day now, so yeah, man. Trying some new stuff. Trying some new stuff. And to start off the day, we're gonna watch. This is kind of the mystery of Legend of Dragoon, because this is a game that I love and I know a lot of people do, and it just kind of it did disappear. It doesn't get any kind of love for some reason, even though it's a great JRPG. It's one of the best, and it uses a battle system that really I've not seen in too many games, which is the active battle system. Well, not active battle, but like interactive. So when you go to make a move, you input commands to like make sure the kind of like in Final Fantasy 6, you like Sabin would do that. You do the blitz commands and all that stuff. It was like that kind of, it's an interaction, then just hit the button and then it attacks, you know what I mean? So it's surprising that this is and it's a PlayStation. It was their company that made this game, and for some reason, they just don't give it no love.
So as more time passed and the industry kept changing,
Oh God, why is it, I
in the
guess, okay.
2000s, Sony released a JRPG that was intended to compete with Final Fantasy VII. It had the marketing
Which it
push,
did not
a
compete with 7, by
multi-year
the way. It
development
tried.
cycle, pretty much a blank.
I will say I do remember this in Sears at the mall in my city. I remember as a kid, that was the first introduction to this game for me. I was at the up there, and for those who don't know what Sears is, it I don't even know if it's around anywhere anymore, but Sears was like, I guess now I think JC Penney's for the most part is still around. It's around at our mall, but and like Dillard's and stuff like that. But Sears was a part of that like 80s, 90s, 70s, probably 60s even through like the early 2000s. That company was around. And for those that don't know, you would go into Sears for a little bit of everything. It was mostly clothing, but and gaming and probably other stuff. And I think tools. There's a lot of stuff. It was like the Walmart of like for like electronics and like everyday things, household items. Like it had a shitload of things in it. Like I remember that. Yeah, like furniture kind of low key. Yeah, exactly, Spotties. Yeah, man. Is like that kind of situation. And I remember being a kid and seeing Tekken 2. Or no, it was the first Tekken. It was the first Tekken because it had what's his face, Jin Kazama's mom. I'm blanking on her name right now. I know her name, but I remember seeing that demo, and then over there beside it was it Sears? It was either Sears or Walmart, man. It's hard to remember that kind of stuff when you're a kid because I also went to Walmart and Toys R Us a lot, so it could have been either three of those, but I'm pretty sure it was Sears. And I remember seeing the demo for this game, and I remember rolling up to the thing. I used to be scared to do that for some reason, like I was like scared. And then that game, I don't know, I just walked right up to it and started playing the demo, and I that's my first like interaction with this game.
Check when it comes to a budget and a combat system that was built to stand out and set itself apart from the competition. It sold over a million.
I can already tell you right now, he's playing what I'm playing today, and he's using a modded version of the game because I can tell by the way it looks. He's playing what I'm playing, the Severed Chains mod. It's like a standalone thing that was built from the ground up from a bunch of fans, which is what we'll be playing today. I probably should have mentioned that in the description. But yeah, we're playing Severed Chains. This isn't the like original PS1 title. It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? It's modded. Uh and you'll see it's a really cool mod. It's got a lot of interesting things that we're doing there. So, check that out. Man, there's a lot of y'all on the YouTube over there. What's up, y'all? This is why we live stream on YouTube like this, because a lot of people seem to enjoy the format, and I think so, at least from what I'm seeing, everyone's enjoying the format. So I'm glad. I'm glad.
Million copies, built a loyal fan base, and then just nothing. No
Trying new things,
sequel,
man.
a remake, or any real follow-up at all,
'Cause I don't get
outside
no
of
kind of
recently
traction
being
on Kick or
ported to
Twitch
modern
these days.
consoles, but even that wasn't the greatest. That's what makes the disappearance of the Legends of Dragoon so strange. This wasn't some failed experiment. I would say you could probably even consider this if it was another studio, successful, and positioned itself to be a flagship RPG of Sony. But instead, it just mysteriously faded away. And if you dig beyond the surface and look into what was happening behind the scenes at PlayStation around that time, the real reason it disappeared has a lot less to do with the game itself and more about Sony. By the late 1990s,
That's what I would think.
JRPGs were starting to break out of their niche.
That's the problem I have with Sony brand games, is they treat them like dirt. They treat them like dirt. They don't give them the right nurturing. Like Final Fantasy, a lot of people associate it with PlayStation because it came out on there, but that's a SquareSoft game. That's its own company. That's its own thing. That's why it's on all consoles and not just PlayStation. So, you know, the- Sony has always had kind of a reputation, even in the PS1 days, to treat uh their IPs, um that's the right word, right? Yeah. Uh like shit.
And reach a much wider audience. A big part of that shift came with one game, and you already know what it is. It's Final Fantasy VII, which really pushed cinematic storytelling and presentation in a way that had never been done before. It was really the
Yeah.
first AAA game, and it wasn't just a hit, it set new expectations for what a big budget RPG could and should look like going forward. Now,
I didn't play Final Fantasy VII when it came out until years later, like in like 2002 or something. I played Final Fantasy VIII before I played Final Fantasy VII, and I still to this day prefer 8 over 7. Even though 7's an amazing game, I think 8 is better. Not story wise, the story in 7 is better than 8, that's for sure. But I like the gameplay in 8 more. And for me, gameplay is more important than story a lot of the time.
Sony did benefit
Unless the
from that
story's complete
success,
shit, then it
but there
takes me
was
out
a
of the
catch,
immersion.
and it was a pretty big catch, and it was that Final Fantasy wasn't a franchise that belonged to Sony, it was owned by Square. So that meant one of the biggest drivers of PlayStation's momentum in the PS1 era was completely outside of their control. So instead of relying on a third-party studio, Sony decided to build something of their own. That decision led to the development of The Legend of Dragoon, and this was a project that was handled internally by Sony's Japan studio. Sony recruited Yasuyuki Hasibe to be the director, and he had previously worked on the battle systems for Final Fantasy V and the Super Mario RPG. This project wasn't positioned to be some small experiment or even just a side project that was going to be a throwaway. Sony treated this like a long-term investment and invested millions and tons of time and engineering power into making this. They really wanted
Yep.
something that can grow into a franchise they fully owned and stand as a competitor for games like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. And
What do? They just dropped the ball completely, abandoned it because it didn't sell the way they thought it was going to sell. But if they would have just held on and made another one for the PS2 and just kept going, at least one per system, I think it would have done really well.
see this reflected in the scope of the game. Development reportedly stretched across several years, which at the time was a major commitment. The team had built dozens of pre-rendered environments and packed the game with cinematic cutscenes and sequences, aiming to match the production value the players were starting to expect from the JRPG genre. At that same time, they didn't want the game to feel like a direct copy of what Final Fantasy was doing, and this is where the twist came with the combat system, and they introduced the addition mechanic. Now, this was basically a system where basic attacks required you to do QTE inputs that were time-based, in order to extend your combos and deal more damage. So instead of you selecting a command and watching it play out, you had to stay engaged and execute each hit correctly in order to extend the combo and deal more damage.
So I believe still to this day, because the only other game that people knew about that was popular at this around this time that people knew about that kind of system was Super Mario RPG. And I think some people thought it was like them ripping off Super Mario RPG, which is stupid because this battle system has been around. I think even before that game, there was something kind of like that back in the day. Maybe not, but I think there was, if I'm not mistaken. Something not released in the U.S. I want to say like one of the Dragoon games or something. I can't remember, but I think there was something else that was kind of like that already. Maybe not though. It might have been the first of its kind. I might be wrong about that. It's harder to remember my history properly sometimes.
It gave every encounter, which would become often with the random encounters, a sense of rhythm as you got used to hitting the buttons for your additions to deal combos, and that involvement really stood out compared to the more passive turn-based systems we were seeing in other JRPGs during this era. And I think this is really where Hasebe's previous experience working on the Super Mario RPG really came into play with developing the combat for Legends of Dragoon. Then you had the Dragoon transformations, which I think were the biggest draw and one of the core identities with this game. Party members
Absolutely.
were able to transform mid-battle
That's the
into
coolest
their
part.
Dragoon
It's
forms,
becoming a
which gave them
Dragoon.
access to tons of new abilities for you to use. Now, this mechanic was influenced by Hasebe's love for transformations and shows that he watched when he was a kid. Him being the director, he had tons of influence in terms of the direction of the game. And so we see all of these inspirations from different times in his life take shape with the Legends of Dragoon, and I think this transformation one was probably the most influential because this really set it apart from Final Fantasy. It's also something that could resonate with a lot of kids in Japan during this era because there were tons of transformations
Yep.
happening that you would see in anime
Oh yeah.
or just even their live action television shows. Now, the
This is when
transformations
shonen
changed both
anime
the
was
pacing
king, man.
and the visual impact of
King.
fights. And so with their objective being to have something that sets it apart
Nothing
from
else.
other RPGs, these transformations really gave it a distinct look that wasn't replicated a lot from other games on the platform. They also poured resources into cinematic cutscenes to position the game alongside Final Fantasy VII and the expectations they set. They really pushed the PlayStation to its limit, filling all 4 discs at the time, which was the maximum that were allowed. So that meant the game shipped with over 30 minutes of cutscenes, and they still had to cut other cutscenes that they wanted to try and squeeze into the game just to make it fit on those 4 discs. Taken together,
Jeez.
with all of these points, you can really see what Sony was trying to do with this franchise. They weren't looking to just fill a gap in their lineup. They really wanted to solidify themselves in the JRPG space and establish a foundation or something that they could build on and iterate and eventually turn into a flagship RPG franchise. But upon release, that plan ran into problems pretty much immediately, and it had less to do with the game itself and more to do with the timing that it showed up and was put onto the market. Now, before we jump into the next act, if you want more JRPG video essays like this, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and consider giving this video a like. But now let's move into the impossible comparison that the Legends of Dragoon had to deal with upon its release. The Legends of Dragoon, when it was finally released, didn't just enter some quiet market, it really stepped into the most crowded and competitive windows that the JRPG genre had ever seen. By that point, Final Fantasy VIII had already captured most of the attention, and it was a follow-up to Final Fantasy VII, which was also backed by a huge marketing budget, and
Yep.
it dominated the conversation around JRPGs on the PlayStation 1. Not long after, you had Chrono Cross, which added even more pressure, bringing its own identity and praise into
Yeah.
the mix, being another
It's a
follow-up
huge game.
to Chrono Trigger,
So good.
which was a very well-received game. So when the Legends of Dragoon did ship, it wasn't viewed as a fresh alternative. It really came into the market as the next thing to be compared to Final Fantasy VII. And that framing shaped how people talked about it from the very start. It didn't get a
Because people were not nice about Legend of Dragoon at all. I remember it getting some pretty heinous like people did not like it. Like I liked it, but I didn't. I was young, pretty young when it came out. So I don't even think I was like 13 by that time. Because when did it come out? 98. I was born 88, so I'd be like 10, something like that. No, but vaguely kind of remember though people like bad mouthing the game.
Chance to get a fresh look, people just saw The Legends of Dragoon and just assumed it was some Final Fantasy VII ripoff, and it was the great value version, and it was never given a chance to stand on its two legs. Instead of giving it a fair chance and looking into what the game was doing differently, a lot of the early impressions just held it up and filtered it through what it did compared to Final Fantasy. The tone of the game, the structure, and even the presentations all got measured against that standard that had already been set. And so once those comparisons were out in the open, it was fully locked in, and it became hard for the game to define itself on its own terms, and not many people gave it a chance. First week, the game
Not
was
really.
not well received in Japan, and it was decently received on the Western market, but this is one of those games that was more of a grower and not a shower. It was more of a grower over time,
All right,
as
man.
opposed to something that was an instant success, which in Sony's eyes was what they wanted,
I like
especially
this guy.
seeing how successful
Tag
Final
the
Fantasy
legend.
VII was during its first week launch in the home market of Japan. Now, the mixed reactions you can also kind of see from the way that they perceive the combat system. The addition system was something different and something totally separate from everything on the market, but they didn't frame this as innovation. They just treated it as a variation, something adjacent to what people already knew, rather than it being someone trying to push the genre in a different direction and set themselves apart. It was also in a time where people still enjoyed the passive experience that came with turn-based.
See, that was the thing. I think I'm so glad I grew up with the Nintendo first, because I didn't get a hold of PlayStation 1 games really until the PS2 came out. Because up till the 64, I had just Nintendo systems and a Sega Genesis. So, like, I played Super Mario RPG a lot. So I was very familiar with this kind of system. So I think that helped a little more for me to like this game, because even when I was young, because I saw it like that. Like I was like, oh, it's another like game like that, and this is the only other game that I knew about at the time that was like this, that had that system. So I think people that had the PlayStation first and they played the Final Fantasy games and all that, I think that's why that happened, because they weren't accustomed to like Super Mario RPG and like SNES stuff necessarily, or maybe they, some of them were. I'm not, that's making generalizations, but I feel like that helped me love this game more because I understood it and appreciated it more because I understood it more, I think, than some people did, because they just thought it was supposed to be like another one of those games, like Final Fantasy, Chrono Cross. But even Chrono Cross was like its own, I don't know.
JRPGs. In today's gaming, QTEs are everywhere, and that reactive and action time systems has its own market of people that love it. But back then, when it came to turn-based JRPGs, they wanted you to select your commands from the menu and keep it as passive as possible. So adding these QTEs in made it more difficult for players to maximize their damage, because for a lot of them, this was their first experience with that type of system. And even more of a reason to point that the game really just released at bad timing.
See what I'm
was that
saying?
the same exact concept was released several years later by other games, and it was well received. This same comparison also
He knows what
happened
I'm
with the
saying.
story and the characters. So even when the game did lean into ideas that were their own, the conversation just continuously kept being pulled back into that same comparison loop. The Legends of Dragoon did still sell around 1 million copies, which I think is a solid result,
Absolutely.
especially for
Still
a new
good.
IP. And if you played it back then, you probably expected some type of sequel. But I think regardless of those sales numbers, with the amount of money that Sony invested, they likely barely recouped and didn't make the profit margins that they were looking to. So with the initial release window not hitting as hard as they expected to, The Legends of Dragoon didn't have a chance to control the narrative around itself, which left the game in a very awkward position. It wasn't ignored, but it wasn't leading anything either. It sat just on the fringe outside of the center of the JRPG genre, close enough for players to recognize it, but not strong enough for it to define itself in the space as a peak franchise. Now, the two biggest critiques were its similarity to Final Fantasy VII and the lack of polishing. And these are both things, and all of the critiques with it are things that likely could have been fixed with a sequel. Sequels are generally where JRPGs improve
that's what they
based
needed.
on feedback and developer experience. Yes, the first entry was a large investment, but future entries could use that baseline and lower the cost as well as the production time it takes to make a sequel.
Exactly,
The
just
second entry
build it
could
around the
have refined
system.
the systems and push the identity further away from Final Fantasy and separate it from those early comparisons. So it really feels like Sony made the big investment to establish the baseline, but didn't reap the rewards of that by making subsequent entries. And so The Legends of Dragoon really could have taken off if it had been given the chance to have a sequel, but unfortunately, that opportunity just never came. The real reason that The Legends of Dragoon disappeared didn't come from its poor sales or even its supposed failed launch. It really came from a shift in what Sony wanted to prioritize as PlayStation moved into the PS2 era. During the PlayStation 1 generation, JRPGs were the platform's biggest strength. They helped define the identity of the system, and unfortunately, The Legends of Dragoon's development timeline lasted about 3 years, pushing it to the end of the PlayStation 1 generation's life cycle. So we saw the industry growing as they moved into the PS2 era, and Sony also started leaning into that different direction as well. So instead of building another traditional turn-based RPG internally, they began focusing on games that could push the cinematic presentation and have a broader global appeal outside of just Japan. You can see that shift in titles like Jak and Daxter, which leaned into action and accessibility, and Eco, which focused on atmosphere and minimalistic storytelling.
Yeah, this is, I mean, basically the PS2, while it did have turn-based, it was definitely like pushing action RPGs, and instead of meeting it halfway like Legend of Dragoon did.
Then a few years later, the Shadow of Colossus doubled down on that approach with its scale and visual impact. Those projects came out of the same internal ecosystem as the Legends of Dragoon, including teams within the Japan studio. They just came representing a different philosophy. Instead of focusing on building long-form menu-driven RPG systems, Sony shifted to investing in an experience that was easier for you to pick up and had a stronger appeal outside of Japan. At that same time, the role of
mainstream appeal
JRPGs within the industry was changing. It started to become more dependent on third-party developers, so companies like Square and Enix continued to push the space forward alongside others like Atlus, and it seemed like Sony actively avoided trying to make anything in the JRPG space and let those third-party developers just own the genre entirely.
Yeah, instead of taking the reins and saying, hey, we still got our stuff too, they did. And naturally, people like Squaresoft, they wanted to branch out to new types of genres within the RPG umbrella, basically. So, of course, naturally, you let them take over. They gave us 10, 10-2 and stuff, and then other devs had other turn-based games that we played on the PS2. But generally, the big shift and what was always being shown in media was games like Shadow of the Cloud Lord. He's talking about like those kind of games, the big action RPGs that started taking over. And yeah, I think if PlayStation could have been more, or if they could have taken the reins more, I think we would have seen a different shift in tone of the games. We would have still had those games, but we would have gotten something else too. It would have been nice, but Spuddies says new game that came out today from Game Freak, Beast of Reincarnation. Don't know if you do reaction to trailer, but I myself don't know if I should get this because it's Pokemon Creator. I'll check it. We'll check it out after this video then. Let's see what that's about, man. Yeah, I'm down.
So this
Suggestions
shift meant a
are
lot
always
for
welcomed
the
here.
Legends of Dragoon because it needed internal support to continue. This wasn't a franchise with multiple entries already or something with an established pipeline, it was just the starting point. And so when you don't have a team actively building on it, there's nothing to carry it forward into the next generation. So even though when it was released, eventually it did find its audience, it just didn't align with where Sony wanted to head for the future. And that's a problem that isn't just unique to The Legend of Dragoon. A lot of early PlayStation era ideas didn't carry forward into the PS2 era because that shift wasn't just about continuing what worked, it was more about redefining what the PlayStation was. Sony just wasn't looking to establish a first-party JRPG pillar anymore. They were building a different identity for the brand, and Sony didn't even hesitate or test the waters with the sequel. They just moved on. And once that decision was made, The Legend of Dragoon didn't have a place anymore within the company, and it wasn't even a priority. So when that pivot happened, it just ended up in a place that's very hard for a new IP to recover from. It didn't fail. It also didn't get canceled. It just didn't have a team behind it anymore. Franchises aren't able to just magically make themselves and continue on their own. They need a studio actively pushing the game forward by refining its systems, working on sequels to keep that momentum alive between console generations. But unfortunately, The Legend of Dragoon never got that second step. So without a follow-up, all of the problems from the first release just stayed unresolved. The combat system had positive ideas, but no chance to evolve it. The world had potential to tell a very good story,
Absolutely.
but they just weren't able to expand on things that they failed at initially, like the voice acting or kind of the clunky storytelling. So all of that being said, the identity was there, it just never got a chance to be reinforced with another entry. So instead of being something that was able to grow massive, it just stalled at its starting point. And so as more time passed and the industry kept changing,
they just forgot about it.
It just made a comeback for The Legends of Dragoon much harder because it wouldn't just be a small project. This would require a full modern RPG production, and that's the kind of investment that Sony was now putting into a completely different type of genre.
Yeah.
And so by the time a sequel
not
actually
completely
could have
different, but
happened, the JRPG genre had already just continued moving forward without The Legend of Dragoon in its mind. You have to think, games around this time were releasing once a year. You got Final Fantasy VII, then 2 years later Final Fantasy VIII, a year after that Final Fantasy IX. So the industry was moving very quickly. Developers were having a chance to iterate and build their franchise, refining their systems across multiple releases. And since there was so much time waited from the initial release of The Legends of Dragoon, they didn't get that chance or have the advantage that a Final Fantasy had, being 7 games already into the series.
Yeah.
So eventually The Legends of Dragoon just slipped into a different category, something that was just sitting in the background, owned but unused. And we've seen this story play out across several games, and once an IP reaches that point, bringing it back becomes so much harder because it's less about carrying momentum from the first entry into the next one, building on the fan base established.
Then you're just trying to pull people back in.
Starting over from scratch. And that decision comes much more harder to justify because it's more risky with investing that type of money into it. We've seen this over several franchises as well.
And they would have
outside
to
of The
remake
Legends
it
of
at this
Dragoon.
point.
Now, what makes the Legends of Dragoon case so interesting isn't that it just had an abrupt stop. It's that nothing ever came out to replace it either. Sony never built another first-party JRPG to take its place, and that lane just stayed empty from Sony's standpoint. So The Legend of Dragoon didn't get pushed out by a better version of itself. It just got left behind as priorities changed. And even with the gap, the game never really faded though. People still bring it up, and it still shows up in popular remake discussions of what should come next. And it also gets recommended when players talk about overlooked JRPGs from that PlayStation 1 era. While The Legend of Dragoon did pull inspiration from other games in the genre, it really was trying to carve out its own space. But regardless of the innovations that they attempted to do, none of that changed the position it's in now. Reviving The Legends of Dragoon today would be a full-on restart that comes with the modern expectations of JRPGs now. And on top of that, it's an IP that's been dormant for decades. Yes, it does have its loyal fan base, but that's from a quarter of a century ago. And so that's going to be a much bigger commitment. And dormant franchises just don't get those.
Not really.
So I think honestly, The Legends of Dragoon, unfortunately, is going to remain where it's been for years. Remembered, talked about, but still just sitting in Sony's catalog without a clear reason to come back. Now, these past few years have kicked off an era of remake, so nothing's off the
Yeah,
table.
it's
And
highly
Sony
doubtful
has
though.
brought back older franchises before, but as of now, The Legends of Dragoon still remains one of those that hasn't.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate too, because it could have been something really great, really amazing, but it just nothing ever came of it, man, and that's just unfortunate. Um, what's it called? Beast of Reincarnation. All right, this is from Game Freak. Game Freak on another console is weird.
はるか昔この国に巨大な獣が出現した獣はいつからか輪廻の獣と呼ばれるようになっただがこたびお前に目をつけた
Alright, looks like Monster Hunter. Okay, that's cool. An AT-AT. Okay. It looks good, but I mean, it looks like another. It looks like a hack and slash game. I think that's interesting that it's on Xbox. Didn't expect to see that. I guess it's gonna be on everything, from what it looks like. I don't see the Nintendo trailer for it though. Interesting. 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 Maybe they just haven't released theirs yet. I don't know. So I guess this one just showed up, but I guess it's been being developed for a long time. It's coming out this year. I guess originally they're developing it for PlayStation. That is, here's the thing. The thing is that it's Game Freak branching off and not, you know what I mean? Like that's supposedly was like a very Nintendo and proven from time is very Nintendo heavy, you know, studio, basically right branch of Nintendo. So that's interesting because you can that should tell you something that they're getting tired of waiting for Nintendo to like come around with their graphics, man. Because they're probably gonna have to like they're gonna have to like do a different version for the Nintendo Switch too than they're gonna be able to with the Steam, Xbox, PlayStation. Because I assume this is gonna come out on Steam. Like you know it is. If it's on Xbox, it's gonna be on Steam. Uh, so I'll get it when it comes out on Steam. But that's pretty cool. Looks good. I'll probably end up getting it. Just check it out. PlayStation had a lot of good games. PS1, PS2. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Going back to Legend of Dragoon, the last time we ever saw anything about Legend of Dragoon is when they added it to the PlayStation Store on the PS3. And I think that was the last time. It might be on the new PlayStation Store now, but for some reason it skipped the PS4. Like you couldn't get it on the PS4. It was really weird. Experimental games. Absolutely. Yeah, Nintendo's gonna be late to the party, of course. Yeah, cool gaming kid. Yeah, they're becoming more and more like the little brother graphically. Like they have all the innovation and none of the graphics. It's just like, what's up with that? And now you got studios like Game Freak being like, you know what, even we're getting we're ready to branch off too. Because I saw that we watched the Pokemon Wind and Wave trailer yesterday, and I was just so unimpressed by it. I was like, man, there's just you can tell there's really not much of a soul to those games anymore, man. Like they used to have so much soul and like cool, interesting, like even like NPC characters were interesting to talk to. Nowadays, like none of them are fun to talk to. Like not really. Some of them are, but not much of them. It's just the soul is leaving the Pokemon games, and I think it's just a burnout. And I think just Game Freak is tired of making those games, so they got to branch out and get their creativity out somewhere else since, they're generally basically attached to the Pokemon brand forever. I thought this was interesting. This is someone did a 3D remake of Chrono Trigger. Wake up, sleepyhead. Bean's bell chimes beautifully.
どうせ昨日寝つけなかったんでしょ。まあ建国千年のお祭りだから無理もないけど、あんまり調子に乗ってはしゃぎすぎるんじゃないわよ。さあいい加減起きなさい。やっと起きたのね。そうそう、幼馴染の発明好きな子。あら、ど忘れしちゃったわ。なんて言ったっけ？あの子。
It's Luca.
ルッカの発明見に行くんでしょ？あんまり遅くならないようにね。さあ、行ってらっしゃい。
I don't think it's in English. Beautiful. Spotties, you've never played Chrono Trigger? Play it. It's my favorite game of all time. It's the best. It's the best, man. It's so good. So good. It's just a masterpiece of a game. Even if you're not that into JRPGs, this is a great entry point into them. For anyone that's never played one, I will always suggest this game first because it's ahead of its time. No pun intended. Wow, that flashed way too fast. What's up, girl? Oh, they can't translate that? Translator's like, nah. She's speaking too fast. Oop. It's Marley. It's okay, Marley. Here you go. Anything for you, girl. Marley was one of the original video game characters that I initially had a crush on. It's Marley. Yes. Let's hang out. Alright.
その包みはオラの母ちゃんの弁当だ。元気もりもり。ほら、毎日楽しみにしてんだ。
No. Chrono. It's gonna come back to bite you in the butt when you're in the trial.
正面に立ってそこを思いっきり叩くんじゃ。
You'll get a guilty verdict. Oh. Good job, Chrono. Now go beat up
まだ
Gato.
挑戦しに来るんじゃぞ。ようこそ実験小屋へ。今からちょっと不思議なショーが始まるよ。
Well,
ビッグス
play
です。
the mini
リ
game.
エットです。ウェッジです。
Which one's which?
さて問題だ。ビッグスは誰だ？
Oh, you're gonna pick. It's the one on the left. Oh, no, I was wrong.
正解。
Okay, that translator's not very good. It just said, Grandma, could I have this? Oh, I guess she's talking to her. Never mind. I thought she was talking to Chrono, calling him Grandma. Thanks for waiting.
さあさあ、お時間と勇気のある方はお立ち会い。これこそ関の大発見。超次元物質転送マシン1号だ。早い話
It's
が
Tabin.
こっちに乗っかると、こっちに転送されるっていう
Or Taban, however you wanna say it.
こいつを発明したのが頭脳明晰彩色顕微のこの俺の娘ルッカだ。あ、兄ちゃんやるのかいと思ったらなんだクロノか。
They're calling her Kika, but it's Luca. Maybe the Japanese name for her is Kika, but the American name is Luca. Whoa. If y'all ever watched The Fly or played Pokemon Gen 1 when you go to Bill's PC, it just makes me think of that.
ちょっとあんたいつの間にこんな可愛い子口説いたのよ。ね、いいでしょ。ここで待ってて。どこにも行っちゃやだよ。
さあさあ、挑戦するのはなんとこんなに可愛い娘さんだ。さあどうぞこちらへ。
じゃあちょっと行ってくるね。
それでは皆さんご注目を。
Yes. Let the beautiful lady teleport around.
エネルギー充填開始。
Uh-oh. Oh no. It's a portal.
はい、影も形もありません。これにておしまい。おい、どうなってんだ。
あの子の消え方、テレポットの転送の消え方じゃない。ペンダントが反応していたようにも、もっと別の何か。
Yeah, basically she's like, somehow the pendant must have reacted to this. And then Chrono's like, oh, I'll save her. She's like, you're gonna go save him? And he's like, hell yeah.
さすが王
See, I played the game before. I know what's happening.
でもまた穴が現れるとは限らないぜ。
I've beaten the game I don't know how many times.
ペンダントがキーになってるのよ。しっかりそれを握って
At least 100 times in my day. I play Chrono Trigger a lot. I beat it at least 3 times a year. And I've been doing that since I was like 14, 13. I'm 38 now, so put that into perspective.
もっと質量上げて、もっともっと。
だよ。
ピンコ、うまくいきそうよ。私も原因を究明したら後を追うわ。頼んだわよ。
Yeah. Oh, 880 or 680. Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah. Oh yeah, get your sword out, man. Oh, what? That's different. He's supposed to just have a sword. I guess this is his wood sword. That was cool. See? Come on, Squaresoft. Make us a sequel, a real sequel. Chrono Cross is sort of a sequel. Chrono Cross ties into Chrono Trigger only mostly towards the end of the game when the final boss, the real final boss is Scala. So that's kind of the only tie in. The rest of it was kind of is tied in, but not. You can tell it was a different game before, and it was. Chrono Cross was originally something else before it became Chrono Cross, but it's fine. It's fine. It's a great game. All right, this one. Thought this was interesting. I don't know. I don't know if we'll watch the whole thing, but this is a task. I don't know how many of you guys ever seen a task, but it's supposed to be some weird stuff. Oh, this is like glitches and stuff in the game. Yeah, that is very broken. Yeah, it's not supposed to happen like that.
Wins flawless victory. Fatality. Round 1, fight. Shang Tsung
Wow.
wins flawless victory. Round 2, fight. Shang Tsung wins flawless victory.
It looks crazy.
Fatality. Round 1, fight.
Damn.
Wins.
That's a nasty combo she has. This is
Round
MK. This is Mortal Kombat 2 for those who don't know. Game was notorious for having weird bugs in it. You could do the Johnny Cage head decapitation. Oh, that messed up the audio. That's weird. Never seen a Babality come out of Babality.
Fatality.
Yeah, like you can like knock off several heads. And, like there's some weird things in this game. Yeah, your head would go through your through your desk, Spotties.
Round 2, fight.
Why? Don't you like fighting games? I'm big into fighting games. I just been playing them the last few years. What the fuck? Wow, you just the task just corrupted the game. That's why the screen did that.
Round 1, fight.
Oh yeah, this is a task. This isn't a human being. This is a computer. This is someone that programmed this to happen.
Wins. Flawless victory.
This is basically inputs that are impossible to do with on a controller that the task can do, and it creates some of these. That's how it's happening. Now, some of these could be done with a human, some of these cannot. But that's a task for you.
Friendship.
That's why I like tasks. They
One fight.
leave for some interesting broken stuff.
Shang Tsung wins. Flawless victory. Round 2, fight.
Like, some of these require you to press up and down at the exact same time, which is not possible on any controller.
Shang Tsung wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Fatality.
Round 1, fight. Shang Tsung wins. Flawless victory. Round 2, fight.
Wow. It's like an infinite.
Shang Tsung
Ow.
wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Ouchies.
Round 1, fight.
What did you just do? What is this? Oh, for the secret fight. So now you're gonna fight Reptile, I believe. It's either Reptile or Smoke in this one. Or Noob Saibot. It's Noob Saibot, that's who it is.
Round 1.
Oh no, it is Smoke. Never mind, okay. I knew it was one of those three. I think Reptile was in the first game as a secret fight, and then this one's Smoke.
Shang
I want to say Noob Saibot. You fight him in this game too. I can't remember.
Round 2, fight.
Wow, an infinite. Oh, not quite an infinite. I don't know if you can keep doing that or if you just have to stop after a certain time. Games sometimes have like a limit to the amount of you can do something, so infinites don't happen. But there's plenty of games in the past that have infinites in them.
1, fight.
Scorpion. Going invisible.
Shang Tsung wins.
Wanna Scorpion? I mean Reptile.
Round 2, fight. Finish her.
Wow.
Shang Tsung
Hey man, I think your head's not quite attached there.
fatality.
I wanna fix that.
Round 1, fight.
Oh, going nutcrack cage with his own move, man.
Shang Tsung wins. Flawless victory. Round 2, fight.
Ooh, that's like perfect time to do it.
Finish him.
All right then.
Wins. Flawless victory.
There's 2 sets of legs. There's one there, and then there's one here.
Round
Got legs growing out his ass.
Shang Tsung
Damn.
wins. Flawless victory.
Liu Kang hits hard.
Round 2, fight.
Some more katana action.
Shang Tsung wins.
Okay.
Flawless victory.
That's a basic one.
Fatality.
I remember when I first did that in this game, and I was like, what? Felt so good. So satisfying when you can pull off a fatality or babality.
Shang Tsung wins. Flawless victory.
Oh, another. Yeah, now this should be the Noob Saibot fight. Prepare yourself.
Round 1.
Oh,
fight.
okay, it's Jade. I remember Jade being mean as hell in this game.
Wins. Flawless victory. Round 2, fight.
What?
Shang Tsung wins.
Wow.
Flawless victory. Shang Tsung. Round 1, fight. Shang
Good old Raiden action. We haven't even seen any of that Raiden yet.
Victory. Round 2, fight. Shang Tsung
Classic.
wins. Flawless victory.
Okay, maybe they ran out of the tricks. Maybe there's no more tricks to show. Let's see.
Round
Only a couple more fights. Mirror fight. That's a classic thing in Mortal Kombat. It's the mirror fight in arcade mode.
round 2, fight.
And I always hated mirror fights, especially the first Mortal Kombat. I always hated the mirror fight.
Finish him.
Oh, here we go. Oh,
Shang
all right then. That was a little weird. Oh, he morphed into player 2 Sing Song. That's strange.
Round 1, fight.
Oh, Kintaro. Another cheap-ass character to fight. So I don't feel bad when this happens to Kintaro. Just in the nuts. Just wailing on this junk.
Shang Tsung wins. Flawless victory. Round 2, fight.
Damn!
Shang
Wow.
wins.
He just
Flawless victory.
went to town on that guy. Golly. Alright.
Feel the wrath of Shao Kahn.
Shogun. I remember him being easier than the Kintaro fight.
You are nothing.
That's me in every Mortal Kombat. I always I always struggle more with the boss right before the final boss.
Of Shao Kahn. Feel the power.
Wow.
No, no.
Good stuff right there. You are the supreme Mortal Kombat warrior. It was smoke. Yep. Sing sung. He's a real asshole. All right, and then I thought let's move over to. Oh, this isn't the one I was gonna watch first. Watch this one. All right, no. I did have it right. I like Smooth McGroove, and he came out with the new song today, 2 days ago. So we're gonna listen to it because it's not very long. Now I know it's gonna be good, so I'm gonna go ahead and like it because Smooth McGroove is awesome. Yeah. Such a talented guy. So good, man. So good. Oh yeah. Smooth McGroove. So good. If you're not subscribed to Smooth McGroove, you should subscribe to him. Awesome guy. Love his stuff. I don't think he gets enough love. He's just a wonderful person and beautiful voice. I thought I never heard this fact, so I thought it'd be interesting. This is apparently the real reason PS1 discs were black.
Why are PlayStation 1 discs black? A lot of people think the black bottom was some kind of advanced anti-piracy technology. It really wasn't. The dark coating mainly existed to make PlayStation games look futuristic and instantly recognizable compared to normal CDs. And in the 90s, that mattered. The original PlayStation was competing against cartridges from Nintendo, so Sony wanted the console to feel modern, high-tech, and different from anything players had seen before. The black discs became part of that identity. But they did create a side effect. Many early CD burners and cheap disc readers struggled to properly read the darker surface, which accidentally made copying PS1 games slightly harder for a while. Eventually, burners improved and piracy caught up anyway. But those black discs still became one of the most iconic parts of the original PlayStation era. Even today, you can recognize a PS1 game instantly just by flipping the disc over. Why are PlayStation 1
True.
discs black? A lot of
Very true. Very true. I remember that. Not all of them are black though. Some of them are not, but for the most part, yeah. And then as a JRPG goer, I thought this would be interesting. These are the 7 overpowered abilities that broke Final Fantasy games. I love another great channel that I've been following for years is the Final Fantasy Union.
Abilities are the cornerstone of any great role-playing game. They're to add flourishes of personality to each character through gameplay. Or, in the case of games where abilities are made to be interchangeable, they're where players can spend hours upon hours poring over optimal setups that can help characters to fulfill their maximum potential. But not all abilities are about achieving the absolute zenith of damage dealing. Some are more nuanced, allowing players to break games in alternative ways. So, without any more preamble, let's run through 7 overpowered abilities that broke Final Fantasy games. And we're going to kick things off with an entry from Final Fantasy VII. When people think of abilities, the first thing that often comes to mind is something that's going to deal damage. But through the materia system, Final Fantasy VII introduced quite a few varieties of abilities, and one of the more interesting, and most broken, was called W-Item. This ability could be used by equipping the W-Item command materia, and its purpose was to allow the character with materia equipped to use 2 items in one turn, replacing the standard item command with W-Item in the command menu. In a more general sense, the ability to use 2 items in a single turn had numerous advantages, but sneaky players found out that there was a flaw in how the W-Item command worked.
Yeah.
And this flaw allowed for the creation of an unlimited number of items.
Yeah.
To exploit the bug
I
was
used
quite
that.
simple.
I remember
Players
that.
just needed to select the W-Item command,
I
choose
remember
the
in
first item they want.
the early 2000s, there was this website that I would go to for cheats or any kind of walkthrough or anything. It's called GameRevolution.com. I think it's still around to this day, but that was where I went, and that's how I found out about stuff like that. Because the problem back in the day was you had a lot of people saying things about games that weren't true, and some things that were true. And sometimes it sounded so crazy, it did not sound true at all, but it was. Some of it. Not all of it. But I remember that. I remember.
Wanted to use, and then the second. But instead of picking the target, players simply needed to cancel the action, which then added the items back to their inventory. If this sequence was repeated, then any item in the game could be duplicated up to its maximum storage of 99. And considering how powerful some items were in Final Fantasy VII, this made the W-Item ability pretty broken, even more so than it was in its original state. Through the Sphere Grid, characters in Final Fantasy X were able to maximize their attributes and learn every possible skill. But in earlier portions of the game, characters were locked into predetermined routes, learning abilities that suited their supposed playstyles and boosting attributes accordingly.
Yeah.
Tidus's section focused on strength and accuracy, with a lesser focus on evasion and agility. And many of his abilities were akin to that of a basic time mage, as he had access to haste and slow and delay buster, which delayed the next turn of whatever was on the receiving end.
Yeah, so there's a few things you can do that are pretty broken in this game. One of them is going into someone else's sphere grid if you just wait over time, and you can just get broken abilities.
But right
For
at the
certain
end
characters.
of Tidus's section was another ability that was rather broken, Quick Hit. The
Yeah,
premise
yeah.
was the opposite of Delay Buster. Instead of altering a turn order by delaying the opposition, Quick Hit altered it by reducing the time between turns for the character who used it. With enough agility, this meant characters could perform 2 to 3 actions before an opponent
Yep.
had the time to react. And it was so strong that for Final Fantasy X International, the developers attempted to provide some better balance. This came at a cost of increasing the ability from 12 MP to 36 MP, and its rank, which determined the recovery time according to the conditional turn-based battle system, was increased from 1 to 2. Despite this, Quick Hit still remained as one of the most useful and broken abilities in the game, and it's almost mandatory when attempting to tackle the game's toughest challenges, like the Dark Aeons and Penance.
Yeah, those are pretty hard fights without something like that, but it can be done
Final
without
Fantasy
it. I've
Tactics
done it.
Advance lent into a less serious style.
If I can
and
do it,
introduced
anyone
some
can.
jobs that were a bit more abstract as a result. Juggler, for example, was a Moogle exclusive job, and it was there as an extension of the Thief job. Their speciality was throwing various items at their enemies and using them to deal damage while also inflicting negative status effects. But they also had another ability that had nothing to do with throwing anything, and that was the Smile ability. The concept of Smile was simple.
See, I
Any
never played
character adopting
much
a juggler
of this
job
game.
could use it to spread joy across the battlefield. But the actual in-game application was a bit different. Jugglers had to choose another party member to smile at, and that party member would get to take their turn immediately. This was of course very useful, but where it became broken was when the party contained multiple jugglers, as they could smile at each other. This created what has affectionately become known as smile trains, because if multiple jugglers smiled at each other, the opposition would never get a turn. And
That's
the jugglers
crazy.
could therefore use this to their advantage to move anywhere on the map in tandem with each other unopposed. Not only that, but every turn the jugglers would be gaining experience, again unopposed, and the enemy team would never be able to do anything about it. Final Fantasy V also featured a pretty significant roster of jobs, and one of the most useful wasn't one that, on paper, was meant to deal huge amounts of damage. The chemist job was built around the character adopting it gaining an advanced knowledge of pharmaceuticals, and the base function allowed them to double the potency of any potions or ethers. But chemists also had another few tricks up their sleeves through the drink command and the mix command, the latter of which was the real feather in their cap.
Yeah.
Mix allowed chemists to combine two items together to make a new one, and the applications here were wide-reaching.
Chemists are
These
mean
new
in this
mixes
game, man.
fell into 10 different categories, ranging from very potent
But
healing effects
requires a
through
lot
to
of
those that
time
were
to do it,
designed
though.
to take damage. Among the healing mixes category, the strongest were Resurrection and Reincarnate, which had the same function but had slightly different mixing combinations. And both mixes were used to revive a KO target to maximum HP and MP. Among the offensive mixes category, players could gain access to a spell which had a power of 240 called Shadow Flare, which not only dealt incredible damage that was defense piercing, but could also inflict the sap status. Needless to say, with so many potential combinations, chemists could be used to turn the tide of almost any battle, provided, of course, that you had enough stock in your inventory. Final Fantasy IX served as a tribute to everything that had come before, and this meant that even though there were set characters, those characters still embodied an array of classic Final Fantasy jobs. In the leading role was Zidane Tribal, a quirky character who was assigned the thief job, as opposed to fulfilling the more traditional warrior or knight archetype. To enhance his gameplay, alongside pretty strong stats across the board, this meant Zidane also had the highest speed and spirit. And this was essential, as Zidane's steal command had its success rate affected by how high the spirit stat was. This then tied into another of Zidane's abilities, Thievery. This ability cost 100 AP to learn from either the Angel Bless or the Tower weapons, and what made it so powerful was that it dealt fixed damage based on a pretty simple formula. The damage dealt by Thievery was therefore equal to the number of successful steals Zidane had completed in the game up until that point, multiplied by his speed.
I swear, dude, all this kind of stuff is just like people that sat there and they love the game so much that they're like, hey, what if I try this? What if I try that? What if I try this? What if I try that? And they just tried a bunch of different things to figure this stuff out. And it's amazing.
Stat divided by 2.
People going
Over
into the
time, this meant
codes of
Thievery
the
could do a
game
huge amount of
figure
damage,
things out.
and because it was fixed, players knew exactly what to expect. The only downside was that it could, on paper, take more time to power up than some other abilities like Frog Drop. Now, many of the jobs featured in earlier Final Fantasy games were designed as clear references to either pre-existing fantasy-based classes or occupations that were more rooted in the real world, but still had an element of martial practicality or mysticism. The final rosters were therefore curated in a careful manner to ensure fan expectations were met, both from a gameplay and lore perspective, and it meant tough decisions were often made behind the scenes around which jobs made the cut and which fell by the wayside. It's what made the addition of Mime in Final Fantasy V quite curious, as it was very unconventional.
So
Mimes only had one job command,
Mime could
and
mimic
that allowed characters to imitate the action taken by a
any character, which means you could do some pretty broken stuff at this thing.
previous character, irrespective of what that action was. This therefore made the mime very powerful in the hands of advanced players. But as we've already covered an ability from Final Fantasy V, it's quite fortunate that mime returned in Final Fantasy VI and then Final Fantasy Tactics. In the ecosystem of the latter game, mime was an advanced
Which are nowhere near as good as it is in Final Fantasy V.
job with some pretty hefty unlock requirements. This meant that even before being able to experiment with the job that was ultimately designed for players who were very comfortable with the complex gameplay mechanics of Tactics, players were required to have level 8 Squire, level 8 Chemist, level 5 Geomancer, level 5 Dragoon, level 5 Orator, and level 5 Summoner.
That's a lot.
Within the tactical setup though, mime was very literal in its execution, still there to replicate the actions of the previous character. But in the hands of experienced players, this made mimes incredibly powerful, especially when the character before them used moves associated with Bard, Dancer, or Arithmetician.
Yep, just doubling down on everything.
That then brings us onto a very overpowered ability that was embedded
Oh,
into
yeah.
the very fabric of Final Fantasy VIII.
This
That
one's
particular
super
game has
broken.
become infamous over the years due to the junction system and how the game handled progression. It meant, unlike in previous games where leveling up characters had the potential to create a power imbalance with
This one was more akin to like Final Fantasy II. Not quite the same, but very, like in that way of progression, the same.
enemies, in Final Fantasy VIII, as your characters leveled up, so too did the enemies. The key to success therefore wasn't to simply just level up your characters more, it was to take advantage of what the junction system offered to create a similar power imbalance. In the most basic sense, the junction system allowed characters to junction magic to specific attributes, which could boost them, and provide elemental and status effect affinities, and this was from both an offensive and defensive perspective. But Guardian Forces were also a key part of the equation, as characters could only use command abilities if they had been learned by a Guardian Force,
Okay,
and that Guardian
Thor.
Force was junction to that character. This opened up quite a few possibilities, and one of the most overpowered abilities was associated with Quetzalcoatl, the first Guardian Force you were given in
Yep.
the game. Some commands came pre-learned, such as Magic, GF, Draw, and Item, but Final Fantasy VIII also offered abilities that
You also got these cards that you could so there's like a card game in this game that was introduced. I think it's Triple Triad, or it became Triple Triad, or I think it is Triple Triad, something like that. But you would earn those cards, and in this game you could refine the cards into magic and things like that. So there were boss cards and there were summon cards that you could also get, and they're very special,
couldn't
which
be used
he's
in
about to
combat.
explain.
These were called menu abilities, and one of them was called Card Mod.
Yeah.
This ability had an intimate relationship with Final Fantasy VIII's optional card game, Triple Triad. Players could, of course, use any Triple Triad games they had to play the game, and seek out other advanced players in-game to unlock more powerful cards. But they could also use the Card Mod ability to refine cards they'd won, or gained via drops, into rare items.
Yep.
These items
Items
could
and
then be
magic.
used to, for example, teach Questis some of her powerful blue magic spells much earlier than intended, or they could be used to help boost up Irvine's shot limit break by providing access to more powerful ammunition. In the most extreme instance, the refinements could lead to weapons being crafted considerably earlier than the developers had planned for a
You can get a
regular play.
You can get a freaking weapon that's supposed to be like towards the end of the game early on with this method.
Playthrough, and this could therefore make characters
Because the way weapons work in this game, it's not traditional where you go into the shop and you buy the weapons or you find the weapons. The way this game worked was you found magazines, and the magazines had the weapons that you needed. And in order to get those weapons, you got materials off of enemies and by killing them and stuff traditionally. But like he's talking about, you could also use that card mod and get those materials way earlier than you're supposed to if you know how to get the cards. And if you beat certain people in Triple Triad early on, you can get those cards. So
incredibly overpowered by, say, giving Squall Leonhardt his ultimate weapon on Disc 1.
yeah.
With that, they were 7 overpowered abilities that broke Final Fantasy games. Be sure to let us know in the comments below which of these you've made use of over the years. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Alright everyone, with that, this is Daryl signing out. As always, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, David Austin, EXPROQuad on YouTube, Frederick Forrest and Stephen Cole, who are super special Onion Knight supporters, and of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.
Hell yeah. I love this guy. Another person this channel's been around for a very long time. They just don't get enough love, I feel like. But there's not a ton of videos on it either. But yeah, see, it started 2014. Great channel for all your Final Fantasy needs. And this is just a funny one. I like Nathan Barnett, who also is known as a character. He plays a character called Keith Apicary, and he just released this last week. And so I thought it'd be fun to watch. I haven't seen it, so I don't know what it is, but I like him, so I wanted to see what it was.
All right, what games do we want to play tonight? We got Pod Racer.
Now he's being his character, Keith Apicary.
We got Game Shark. We got Portal 64. That's an incredible feat of technology and science, if you do ask me. But that is not what I want to play. Where the heck is Shadows of the Empire? Oh, there it is. Oh, come on. Got it. What the heck is this? It feels wet. What the? Oh, this thing's ancient.
Don't do it. No. It's just gonna be the death of Keith Apicary. Oh, no.
And it was on that day when I circled upon that ancient Capri Sun that I was no longer Keith Apicary. I am now Major Gamer, master of all video games, conqueror of all graphics, and ruler of all.
Oh my god, dude.
gigabytes.
Of course.
Gamer, and I'm reporting for Do Bad Duty, ready for analog assault.
He got upgraded, man. Oh my god. That is perfect. That is perfect. For those who don't know who Keith Apicary is, real quickly, I'm going to just show you one of his probably like most famous videos that he's known for. He's been around. He's an OG. I'll just show this one. This is like probably his biggest video that he's ever done. Just about. But he's been a part of a lot of things in pop culture history that you guys probably don't even realize. Like doing things with Flo Rida to like what's her face and other stuff.
My ears are gonna bleed.
Because he's actually an amazing dancer.
Give me something good. What a surprise! This song sucks too.
There he is. He has a very particular dance style. Yeah. He's so good, dude. He's really good about combining comedy with dancing and music. It's good stuff, man. One of those feel-good people I like to watch. Always makes my day a little better when I watch one of his videos. And oh, might as well do it with him then. Dude. And like, they do some of this stuff on location. Some of it's green screen and some of it is actually on location. So you can imagine coming out and you're seeing people doing this in public. Like, it's great. Like, what is this? What is this? You know, that shot right there, I bet that shot took forever to take. That's impressive. But yeah, that's Keith. That all right. I almost called him by his stage name. That's Nathan Barnett, man. He's so cool. Love that guy. Good guy. He's a good guy. Is there anything else we want to cover? Any I'll take this time any suggestions or anything that anyone wants to see. Because if not, we're gonna move on to the next part. We'll take a quick break and then we'll move on to the gaming part of the day. Almost said night. I'm so used to streaming at nighttime, man. But yeah, if there's no suggestions or anything he wants to see, I think we'll just move on. Give y'all a second. Looking at you, chat. This is my feed. I have a lot of gaming and not political, but well, some of it's political. Just things. Got a lot of stuff. See? I watch a lot of things. All right. I think we're going to move on then to the next part of the stream. Now we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be playing Legend of Dragoon on the PS1. But it's going to be severed chains, so it's going to be a mod, essentially. It's really good, so we'll be back with that.